June 25, 2001. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office releases a report that shatters the heart of America's eternal genie. Matthew Ansara, 35 years old, found dead in his car from a heroin overdose. The son of Barbara Eden, the woman who brought magic to millions of television screens as the enchanting genie, has succumbed to demons that no amount of maternal love could conquer. Barbara Eden sits in her Beverly Hills home staring at the pink costume that made her immortal, the outfit that granted wishes to everyone except the woman who wore it. She had given magic to millions of people, but the one miracle she needed never came. For 36 years, she had been Jeannie, the genie who could make anything happen with a simple nod and a twinkle. She had granted Major Nelson's every desire in each episode, brought laughter to countless families, and created television magic that would endure for generations. But when it mattered most, when her only child needed saving, all her power meant nothing. The phone rings incessantly with condolences from co-stars, fans, and journalists seeking statements about her loss. But Barbara Eden, the woman who had spent decades perfecting the art of appearing cheerful on command, cannot summon even the faintest smile. The genie who once emerged from her bottle with boundless energy and infectious joy now feels trapped in a reality where no amount of magic can bring back what matters most. Outside her window, the California sun shines with the same relentless brightness that once illuminated the sets where she created television history. But inside, America's favorite magical being confronts the cruelest truth of all. Hollywood's magic stops at the morgue door. Real life offers no scriptwriters to fix tragic endings, no directors to call cut when the pain becomes unbearable, no costume changes that can transform grief into joy. The world knows Barbara Eden as the eternally optimistic genie who made dreams come true. They remember her infectious laughter, her dazzling smile, her ability to make the impossible seem effortless. But who was the woman behind the pink satin and the ponytail? What price did she pay for bringing magic to others while her own life was touched by very human heartbreak? Jeannie was immortal on television. Matthew died in silence. The woman who could make all of America laugh couldn't stop one person from crying. As Barbara sits alone with her memories and her grief, the questions that have followed her throughout her career take on new urgency. Was she trapped by her own success, forever typecast as the cheerful genie while her real struggles remained hidden? Did the woman who granted wishes for others ever get her own deepest desire fulfilled? To understand how America's most beloved genie learned to conjure joy while carrying profound sorrow, we must first travel back to a small Arizona town where a young girl discovered that sometimes the most powerful magic is simply the ability to make others smile, even when your own heart is breaking. August 23, 1931. In the desert heat of Tucson, Arizona, Barbara Jean Moorhead enters a world where love comes with conditions and abandonment lurks behind every promise. Born to Alice Franklin and Hubert Moorhead, a telephone lineman whose work keeps the family moving throughout the Southwest, Barbara's earliest lesson is one that will shape her entire life. Making people happy is the only way to avoid being left behind. When Barbara is 2 years old, her father abandons the family, disappearing into the Depression-era landscape like a character erased from a script. This abandonment becomes the first great defining trauma of Barbara's life, teaching her that love can vanish without warning, that security is always temporary, and that survival depends on one's ability to charm, please, and perform for others' approval. Barbara learns that making people happy isn't just nice, it's necessary. Alice Moorhead, left to raise her daughter alone during the depths of the Great Depression, remarries Harrison Connor, a kind but struggling salesman. The family's frequent moves create a childhood defined by constant adaptation and reinvention. In each new school, Barbara must quickly establish herself, find her place, prove her worth to new classmates and teachers. She develops an almost supernatural ability to read rooms, to sense what people want from her, and deliver it with apparent effortlessness. Music becomes Barbara's weapon and her refuge. In church choirs across the Southwest, she discovers that her voice can transform not just her own circumstances, but the emotional atmosphere of entire congregations. When Barbara sings, adults stop their whispered conversations, children cease their fidgeting. And for a few precious moments, the world seems more beautiful than it actually is. This power, the ability to create temporary magic through performance, becomes as essential to Barbara as breathing. But this gift comes with a curse. Barbara begins to understand that people love what she can do for them, not necessarily who she is. The applause comes when she performs. The attention comes when she entertains. The affection comes when she makes others feel good about themselves. Love, Barbara learns, is earned through service, maintained through constant effort, and lost when you fail to please. By adolescence, Barbara has perfected what will become her signature combination: wholesome beauty paired with an almost mystical ability to project optimism and joy. Teachers and neighbors consistently describe her as such a nice girl, always so cheerful, a pleasure to have around. But those closest to her begin to notice something troubling. Barbara seems incapable of expressing negative emotions, as if she has trained herself so thoroughly to be pleasant that authentic feelings must be carefully hidden. Her high school years in San Francisco reveal the first hints of professional ambition. But this isn't typical teenage stage-struck dreaming. This is a young woman who has discovered that performance is not just her talent but her protection, not just her gift but her survival strategy. Barbara participates in every musical production, every talent show, every opportunity to be on stage, honing skills that will later make her millions, but also learning that her value lies in what she can give others, not in what she might need for herself. The bottle that will later make Barbara famous represents something profound about her early understanding of power and service. Even magical beings exist to fulfill others' wishes. Could anyone have predicted that this displaced Arizona girl would become one of television's most enduring icons? Or was Barbara Eden always destined to be a performer? Someone whose greatest challenge would be finding the line between authentic self and carefully constructed persona. As high school graduation approaches, Barbara faces the choice that will determine everything: stay in the safe, small world where she is known and appreciated, or venture into the vast uncertainty of professional entertainment. The decision she makes will launch not just a career, but a lifetime of careful balance between authentic emotion and performed happiness, between private struggle and public magic. The seeds of tragedy are already planted. A woman who believes love must be earned through making others happy will struggle to ask for help when her own world falls apart. The genie who grants wishes to everyone else will find it impossible to voice her own deepest needs. 1949. Barbara graduates from Abraham Lincoln High School in San Francisco, with a clear understanding that her future lies in the uncertain world of professional entertainment. Armed with natural talent, relentless optimism, and survival skills learned from a childhood of constant adaptation, she sets her sights on Hollywood with the kind of determination that can only come from someone who understands that performing isn't just a career choice, it's a necessity for survival. Her early years in Los Angeles are marked by the familiar struggle of countless aspiring performers, but Barbara possesses something that sets her apart. She has spent her entire life learning to make people happy, and she instinctively understands that happiness is what audiences ultimately want to purchase. While other performers struggle to find their niche or develop their persona, Barbara simply offers herself, the cheerful, optimistic, endlessly pleasant woman she has been perfecting since childhood. But this authentic-seeming pleasantness is actually Barbara's most sophisticated performance. She has become so skilled at reading what others need and providing it that few people ever encounter the woman beneath the smile. The bottle hasn't been opened yet, but the genie is already trapped, imprisoned by others' expectations and her own deep-seated fear that showing any darkness might result in the abandonment she has dreaded since her father disappeared. Her breakthrough comes through the emerging medium of television, which in the early 1950s offers opportunities for performers who might never have found their place in movies or Broadway. Barbara's wholesome beauty and natural ease in front of cameras make her perfect for family-friendly programming. She appears on variety shows, sings on musical programs, and slowly builds a reputation as a reliable, professional performer who can be counted on to deliver exactly what producers and audiences expect. Television work reveals depths to Barbara's talent that surprise even her supporters. When given opportunities to play more complex characters in anthology series and television movies, Barbara demonstrates emotional range and dramatic capability that extends far beyond her reputation as a pleasant singer. These performances hint at artistic ambitions that go deeper than simply being likable, suggesting that Barbara Eden might be capable of more serious work than her sunny persona typically allows. The late 1950s bring film opportunities, including Flaming Star opposite Elvis Presley and The Brass Bottle, where she plays opposite Tony Randall in a story about a man who accidentally releases a genie from an ancient vessel. The irony is not lost on Barbara. She is already practicing for the role that will define her life, learning to embody magical wish fulfillment while her own wishes remain carefully hidden. Her marriage to actor Michael Ansara in 1958 appears to be the perfect Hollywood love story, but it carries the seeds of future problems. Michael, a serious dramatic actor, sometimes struggles with being married to a woman whose career depends on projecting perpetual cheerfulness. The demands of maintaining her image, always being on, always being pleasant, always being the Barbara Eden that audiences expect, begin creating strain in a marriage that requires authentic emotional connection. The birth of their son Matthew in 1965 seems to complete the picture of domestic happiness, but it also introduces new pressures. How does America's sweetheart raise a normal child? How does a woman known for granting wishes teach her son that real life doesn't work like television magic? Barbara approaches motherhood with the same determined optimism she brings to everything else, but the challenges of parenting cannot be solved through charm and performance. As the 1960s begin, Barbara has achieved respectable success, but she has not yet found the role that will transform her into a cultural icon. That transformation is coming, but it will arrive with complications she cannot anticipate. The genie is about to emerge from her bottle, but the woman who will become synonymous with wish-granting magic is still learning that some wishes, particularly the most important ones, cannot be granted through performance alone. The magic that will make Barbara Eden a star is also preparing to become her prison, trapping her in a persona so perfect that escaping it will prove impossible, even when her real life requires the kind of authentic vulnerability that Jeannie could never show. 1964. The phone call that will forever change Barbara Eden's life comes from Sidney Sheldon, offering her the lead role in a television comedy about an astronaut who discovers a beautiful genie. When Barbara reads the script for I Dream of Jeannie, she sees both opportunity and trap. A starring vehicle that showcases her abilities, but also a character whose defining traits, devotion, wish fulfillment, and perpetual cheerfulness, might typecast her in ways that could limit future opportunities. The audition reveals how perfectly Barbara embodies what Sheldon envisions. When she appears in the now iconic pink costume, something magical happens that has nothing to do with special effects. Barbara doesn't just wear the costume, She inhabits it, becoming someone both entirely new and somehow familiar, as if Jeannie had always existed and was simply waiting for the right actress to bring her to life. The real magic occurs when Barbara performs Jeannie's signature gestures. The arms crossed over the chest, the subtle nod, the expression of eager devotion mixed with mischievous delight. These movements represent more than mere acting. They are the physical embodiment of a fantasy that will resonate with millions of viewers who long for their own magical solutions to life's complications. But for Barbara, they also represent the crystallization of everything she has learned about survival. Make others happy, fulfill their needs, and never let them see the real you. I Dream of Jeannie premieres on September 18, 1965, and immediately establishes itself as appointment television. Barbara's portrayal becomes a masterclass in comedic acting that disguises its sophistication behind apparent simplicity. She must make magical powers seem believable while keeping them comic rather than threatening. Project devoted love while maintaining her character's independence and create chemistry with Larry Hagman's Major Nelson that reads as both romantic and innocent. But as I Dream of Jeannie becomes a cultural phenomenon, Barbara begins experiencing the double-edged nature of iconic success. The show makes her one of the most recognizable women in America, but it also begins to define her in ways that extend far beyond her professional life. Everywhere she goes, people expect to encounter Jeannie, the cheerful, accommodating, perpetually optimistic, magical being who exists only to make others happy. This expectation creates a peculiar form of imprisonment. The more people love Jeannie, the fewer people know Barbara. She cannot appear in public looking anything less than perfect, cannot express frustration or sadness without disappointing fans who want their real-life Jeannie to be as magical as her television counterpart. The line between Barbara Eden, the actress, and Jeannie, the character, begins to blur in ways that prove increasingly problematic. Her personal life during the show's run becomes complicated by this public identification. Her marriage to Michael Ansara faces new pressures as Barbara's fame eclipses his career. And young Matthew must grow up with a mother who belongs as much to the public as she does to her family. The demands of the show leave little time for the kind of authentic emotional connection that marriages and families require. Letters and interviews from this period reveal Barbara struggling with questions she cannot voice publicly. What happens when the person everyone loves isn't really you? How do you maintain authentic relationships when your livelihood depends on being permanently pleasant? Can a woman who grants everyone else's wishes ever admit she has needs of her own? By the show's 4th season, Barbara has achieved everything she once dreamed of. Stardom, financial security, cultural impact that most actors never experience. But she has also begun to understand that success in Hollywood often comes with unexpected costs. The Jeannie who grants everyone else's wishes is beginning to wonder if her own deepest desires for authentic connection, artistic growth, freedom to be fully human, will ever be fulfilled. The magic that made Barbara Eden a star is about to be tested by very real challenges. Maintaining authenticity while living as a symbol of perpetual happiness, raising a child while being owned by the public, and preserving a marriage while being more committed to her audience than to her family. The woman who makes wishes come true is about to discover that some problems cannot be solved by crossing your arms and nodding your head. 1970. I Dream of Jeannie ends its 5-season run as one of television's most beloved sitcoms. But for Barbara Eden, the show's conclusion brings not liberation but a new kind of prison. The final episode gives fans the romantic resolution they craved, but it also marks the beginning of Barbara's struggle with a question that will haunt the rest of her career. How does an actress move beyond a role that has made her more famous than almost any movie star of her generation? The challenge facing Barbara is unprecedented. Jeannie has become so identified with Barbara that the public can barely imagine her as anyone else. This identification, while commercially valuable, threatens to limit her future in ways that less successful actors never experience. Television producers and film directors struggle to see Barbara as anything other than the cheerful, magical character who made her famous. But the professional frustration is overshadowed by personal challenges that begin testing Barbara's legendary optimism. Her marriage to Michael Ansara, strained by the pressures of their respective careers and the demands of raising a child in Hollywood, deteriorates throughout the early 1970s. The divorce in 1974 is conducted with the public dignity that fans expect, but privately it represents the first major failure in Barbara's carefully constructed life. More troubling are the early signs of struggle in Matthew, now 9 years old and beginning to show the effects of growing up with a mother who belongs more to the public than to her family. The boy who once charmed television crews with his presence on set becomes sullen and withdrawn, as if he understands that competing with America's love for his mother is a battle he cannot win. Barbara's response to these challenges reveals both her strengths and limitations. Her instinct is to apply the same cheerful persistence that made her a star. If she just loves Matthew enough, encourages him enough, believes in him enough, surely she can help him overcome whatever difficulties he faces. But real life, as Barbara is learning, doesn't respond to the same techniques that work in television comedy. The 1970s see Barbara continuing to work steadily, but none of her projects capture public imagination the way I Dream of Jeannie did. She becomes a victim of her own success, forever compared to a standard that no subsequent role can match. The woman who once brought magic to television now finds herself trapped by that very magic, unable to escape the pink costume and ponytail that defined her career. Her brief marriage to Charles Fager in 1977 ends quickly, suggesting that Barbara's legendary ability to make others happy doesn't necessarily translate into her own romantic fulfillment. Men approach Barbara Eden expecting either the magical genie or the wholesome girl next door, and few seem interested in discovering the complex woman beneath these personas. Perhaps most significantly, Matthew's difficulties begin escalating during his teenage years. The boy who grew up on television sets and at Hollywood parties starts experimenting with substances that represent every parent's nightmare. Barbara watches helplessly as her son battles demons that her love, her fame, her resources, and her connections cannot defeat. The tragedy is that Barbara, who has spent her entire life making others happy, cannot make her own son happy. The woman who granted wishes for millions of television viewers cannot grant her son's wish to escape the pressure of being America's favorite genie's child. She is a genie for the whole world, but just a powerless mother to herself. Barbara's attempts to help Matthew reveal the limitations of her survival strategy. The same techniques that made her a star, projecting optimism, focusing on others' needs, avoiding authentic vulnerability, prove inadequate for addressing her son's serious problems. She cannot perform her way out of this crisis, cannot charm addiction into submission, cannot smile brightly enough to heal her child's pain. As the 1970s end, Barbara has survived the transition from active television star to cultural icon, but the survival has come at significant personal cost. She remains beloved by the public and continues working steadily. But beneath the surface, she is beginning to understand that the woman who spent 5 years granting fictional wishes may have sacrificed her ability to address real-world problems. The 1980s will bring new challenges that test Barbara's resilience in ways no television script could have prepared her for. The magic that made her a star is about to encounter the harsh realities of addiction, and the genie who granted wishes to others will discover that some bottles once opened can never be closed again. 1982. Barbara Eden stands before her mirror, applying makeup for another television appearance when she sees promotional photos from I Dream of Jeannie on the wall behind her. 17 years have passed since she first donned that pink costume. Yet the woman in the photographs looks exactly like the woman staring back from the mirror. Barbara has discovered the strange curse of iconic success. She has become ageless in the public imagination, forever frozen as the eternally youthful genie who grants wishes and spreads joy. But the preservation of her image cannot mask the changes occurring in her personal life, particularly concerning Matthew, now 17 and struggling with rebellion that goes far beyond typical teenage acting out. The boy who once charmed television crews has become secretive and increasingly distant from the mother who once thought her love could solve any problem. Barbara's second marriage has ended, and she faces the reality of being a single mother to a troubled teenager while maintaining a public image built on perpetual optimism. The contrast between her private struggles and public persona becomes increasingly difficult to manage. At public appearances, she must project the same cheerful energy that made Jeannie beloved, while privately she worries about Matthew's grades, his friends, and his growing experimentation with substances. The entertainment industry of the early 1980s offers Barbara opportunities that reflect both her enduring popularity and the limitations of her typecasting. She appears in television movies capitalizing on her wholesome image, guest stars on variety shows celebrating television's golden age, and participates in I Dream of Jeannie reunion specials. But these projects, while professionally satisfying, also reinforce her identification with a role she played 2 decades earlier. Barbara begins understanding that she is experiencing a unique form of artistic imprisonment. Unlike actors who struggle for recognition, she is perhaps too recognized, too identified with a single character, too successful in creating an iconic image that now defines her more than she defines it. Every new role is compared to Jeannie. Every public appearance is an opportunity for fans to reconnect with their childhood memories of magical television. Her third marriage to real estate developer John Eichholz in 1991 represents Barbara's attempt to find personal happiness independent of her professional identity. John, operating outside the entertainment industry, offers Barbara the possibility of a relationship based on who she is, rather than what she represents. The marriage provides Barbara with stable personal foundation, but it cannot protect her from the crisis developing with Matthew. By the 1990s, Matthew's struggles with addiction have escalated beyond teenage experimentation into serious substance abuse that threatens his life. Barbara watches helplessly as her son battles demons that her love, fame, resources, and connections cannot defeat. She discovers that all the magic in Hollywood cannot prevent the tragedy breaking her heart. Barbara's career during this period reflects her status as a beloved figure from television's golden age, but increasingly her public appearances become exercises in carefully managed emotion. She must project joy and optimism while carrying private grief that threatens to overwhelm her legendary composure. The eternal smile hides grief that grows deeper with each failed intervention, each relapse, each phone call from police or hospitals. The late 1990s see Barbara beginning to speak more openly about the challenges of parenting in Hollywood, though always in general terms that protect Matthew's privacy while acknowledging her own struggles. She becomes an advocate for addiction awareness, using her platform to help other families facing similar challenges. But beneath her public advocacy lies private desperation that grows stronger as Matthew's condition worsens. The woman who once made magic look effortless discovers that real magic, the kind that might save her son, remains frustratingly beyond her reach. She can grant wishes to fictional characters and bring joy to millions of viewers, but she cannot grant her own most desperate wish: to save the person she loves most in the world. As the new millennium approaches, Barbara Eden has achieved something rare in Hollywood. She has remained relevant and beloved for more than 4 decades. But she has also learned that success in entertainment provides no protection against the most fundamental human experiences of love, loss, and powerlessness. The genie who once made everything seem possible is about to face the ultimate test of her resilience. June 25th, 2001. The call comes at dawn, the kind of phone call that every parent dreads but somehow expects when addiction has become the central character in your family's story. Matthew Ansara, 35 years old, has been found dead in his car in Monrovia, California, the victim of a heroin overdose that marks the end of a battle consuming more than half his life and breaking his mother's heart repeatedly over 15 years. Barbara Eden sits in her dark bedroom listening to official details that will become news. Acute intoxication, no foul play suspected. Another Hollywood tragedy involving a celebrity's child. But the clinical language cannot capture the enormity of what has happened. America's most beloved genie, the woman who made magic look effortless for millions of viewers, has been powerless to save the person who mattered most. The scene unfolds with horrifying precision. Barbara's Beverly Hills home, filled with memorabilia from I Dream of Jeannie, photographs, awards, fan letters, costume reproductions, becomes the setting for the worst news of her life. The woman who blinked her eyes and nodded her head to make impossible things happen on television spent years trying every possible intervention to help Matthew overcome addiction, and none of it was enough. The irony cuts deepest in her living room where a pink genie costume hangs in a display case. For 36 years, this outfit represented the power to grant any wish, solve any problem, make any dream come true. Now it stands as a monument to the limits of love, the boundaries of influence, the harsh reality that some battles cannot be won through determination, resources, or hope. The phone rings incessantly with condolences, but the calls blend together in a symphony of sympathy that cannot touch the core of Barbara's grief. Reporters ask for statements about America's sweetheart losing her son, as if her public image should somehow cushion the blow of private devastation. The world expects their eternal genie to handle tragedy with the same grace she brought to comedy, never understanding that real grief cannot be performed. Outside, the California sun shines with the relentless brightness that once illuminated sets where she created television history. But inside, America's favorite magical being confronts truths that no script ever contained. That real life offers no directors to call cut when pain becomes unbearable. No costume changes that transform grief into joy. No magical solutions to problems that require more than crossed arms and a hopeful nod. The public response reveals the complex relationship between Barbara's private grief and her public image. Fans express sympathy while seeming shocked that someone so associated with happiness could experience such profound loss. The media coverage struggles to reconcile tragedy with Barbara's wholesome image, as if being America's favorite genie should provide protection against life's randomness. Barbara's first public statement is a masterpiece of controlled emotion reflecting decades of experience managing private pain, while maintaining public dignity. She speaks of loving a son through his struggles, of addiction as a disease claiming victims regardless of their family's love or resources, of gratitude for fan support. But beneath carefully chosen words lies anguish that no public statement can express. The funeral becomes an intersection of Barbara's two worlds, the entertainment industry that made her famous and personal relationships that gave life meaning. Colleagues from I Dream of Jeannie attend alongside Matthew's friends from various recovery attempts, creating a gathering reflecting both privilege and pain that defined Matthew's existence as a cultural icon's son. In the weeks following Matthew's death, Barbara faces the challenge of continuing to live while carrying grief that seems incompatible with the public persona she has maintained for 40 years. How does America's sweetheart acknowledge devastating loss while preserving the image that brought comfort to millions? How does a woman known for granting wishes admit that her most important wish, keeping her son alive, has been denied? The answer comes not through retreat or denial, but through Barbara's decision to transform private tragedy into public service. Rather than hiding her grief, she begins speaking openly about addiction, loss, and the limits of parental love. She becomes an advocate for other families facing similar struggles, using her platform to destigmatize addiction and encourage treatment. The transformation is profound. Barbara Eden is no longer just the cheerful actress who played a magical character, but a woman whose vulnerability in the face of tragedy has created new forms of meaning and connection. The magic she now offers audiences is not fantasy wish fulfillment, but hope that profound grief can be survived and that love continues even after loss. Death's finality reveals the ultimate difference between television and reality. There are no retakes, no script revisions, no magical solutions to problems that break hearts and end lives. Barbara Eden, who spent decades making the impossible seem possible, must now find ways to make the impossible, living without her child, somehow bearable. More than 2 decades have passed since Barbara Eden first appeared as Jeannie, and her place in American culture has evolved far beyond her original role as a television star. She has become something rarer and more valuable, a symbol of resilience, a reminder that genuine grace can emerge from genuine struggle, and proof that the most powerful magic is not the ability to grant wishes, but the courage to keep living and loving even when life breaks your heart. Barbara Eden today, in her 90s, represents a unique achievement in American entertainment. A career spanning 8 decades while maintaining both professional relevance and personal dignity. The woman who once seemed destined to be remembered only as the cheerful genie in the pink costume has created a legacy encompassing far more than television magic. She has become a testament to surviving life's worst tragedies while continuing to offer hope and comfort to others. Her public appearances in recent years reveal an artist who has found peace with both her iconic status and her personal journey. When Barbara appears at fan conventions or television retrospectives, audiences encounter not just the actress who played Jeannie, but a woman whose life experiences have given her genuine wisdom about love, loss, and the complex relationship between public success and private fulfillment. The enduring popularity of I Dream of Jeannie ensures that new generations continue discovering Barbara Eden's work, but the show's contemporary relevance extends beyond simple nostalgia. In an era of increasingly complex and dark entertainment, Jeannie's essential optimism and Barbara's authentic charm offer audiences something both refreshing and necessary. Proof that entertainment can be uplifting without being simplistic, that joy can be genuine even in a complicated world. Barbara's evolution from television star to cultural icon to public advocate has created a legacy encompassing entertainment, social service, and personal inspiration. She has used her platform to support addiction research, comfort families facing similar losses, and demonstrate that public figures can acknowledge personal struggles without compromising their ability to bring joy to others. Her marriage to John Eichholz has provided Barbara with personal stability and authentic love that eluded her in earlier relationships. Their partnership, spanning more than 3 decades, represents success that has nothing to do with show business and everything to do with fundamental human capacity for connection and mutual support. In John, Barbara found someone who loves the woman behind the image, who supports her public work while protecting her private peace. The question of Barbara Eden's ultimate legacy is complex because her impact operates on multiple levels simultaneously. As an entertainer, she created one of television's most enduring characters and helped define the golden age of situation comedy. As a cultural figure, she represents an era when family entertainment could be both popular and genuinely wholesome. As a public advocate, she has used fame to support causes that matter to families struggling with addiction and loss. But perhaps Barbara's most significant legacy is more personal and harder to quantify. She has shown that it is possible to maintain grace under pressure, to find meaning in suffering, and to continue offering hope to others even after experiencing profound personal loss. The genie who once granted wishes through television magic has become something more valuable. A real person whose response to real tragedy offers real comfort to those facing their own struggles. Barbara Eden's story challenges conventional narratives about both success and suffering in American culture. She achieved iconic status that most performers can only dream of, but that success did not protect her from fundamental human experiences of love and loss. She discovered that fame could not save her son, that money could not cure addiction, that all the magic in Hollywood could not prevent the tragedy that broke her heart. Yet her response has been neither bitterness nor retreat, but deepened commitment to living fully and serving others meaningfully. She has transformed personal tragedy into public service, private grief into shared comfort, individual struggle into collective healing. The woman who once made magic look effortless has revealed that the most profound magic is human capacity to survive, to love and to hope even in the face of devastating loss. The bottle has been closed, the costume retired, but the magic continues in the most important way possible. Through the ongoing choice to live with love, dignity, and unshakable faith in the possibility that tomorrow might be better than today, even when today has broken your heart beyond repair. Barbara Eden has granted herself the most important wish of all, the freedom to be authentically herself in all her complexity, and to offer that authenticity as a gift to a world that still needs to believe in magic. Not the kind that comes from bottles or special effects, but the kind that emerges when people choose love over fear, hope over despair, and connection over isolation. The genie who learned that some wishes cannot be granted has become something more valuable. A living example of how to survive life's greatest disappointments, while continuing to offer hope, comfort, and joy to others fighting their own battles against despair. Her greatest performance may be the one she's still giving, the daily choice to live with grace, to love without reservation, and to continue believing in the possibility of happiness even after learning that not all stories have fairy tale endings. That may be the most enduring magic of all, proof that ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges can still choose to be forces of light in a world that desperately needs illumination.